And I think we're heading into a new year, and it's real easy when you're going to teach to be like, okay, let's talk about, New Year's resolutions, of which I don't think I've ever kept one, if we're being honest. I was thinking about it. I don't know that I've ever kept a New Year's resolution all the way through the whole year. I don't know. I maybe, and I just don't remember it. But if I did, it wasn't a big one. Every year, and it's a natural inclination to kind of think, okay, well, it's a new year, it's a fresh start, and we're going to make some changes. And I've already got a plan. I got some changes I need to make, health-wise, and so it seems like a good starting point, right? Okay. It seems like a good starting point, right? Yes. Okay, that's better. I'm going to need you to know you're here this morning. We don't want to fall asleep. I know we're at the end of this year. Just think, this year was better than 2020. Okay? It may not have been the best, but there's been worse recently. Okay? And as we're doing that, as I was thinking about that, about New Year, and I didn't set out and write out any New Year's resolutions or anything like that. I have a vision for what I want to see this year, and maybe that's just trying to sound super spiritual and call the same thing something different. Saying, I don't have any New Year's resolutions, but I have a vision for the year. That's the difference is that a vision is something that you can receive from God. God speaks to us in visions. And a resolution, that says, hey, I want to do this, 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 and it's a to-do list. And I'm not against New Year's resolutions, but I am pro-vision. And I want to see things happen, and I want to see us as a body move into that next level, into that next stage of what we're doing. And what's great about us, and we're just going to brag on us a little bit. I love to brag on me. We all know that. But no, Rob, you've got 15 more minutes before I expect you to nod off, okay? So that's the advantage of being up here. I catch all of you. When those eyes close, I know it. You want to play games? I got the microphone. Well, to brag about us is I have been in lots of churches. I grew up in church, and the unity of this church is something that's unique, I believe. I imagine every church would say that, but it really does feel like we have each other's back. It really does feel like we care about each other. We want to see the best come out of each other. I don't get a vibe ever, and haven't, in this place of jealousy or, envy of position. I mean, if you want to do something, my dad will put a pastor in front of your name and put you at it. Okay, so, I mean, ask Karen. She's been strong-armed into things, and she hasn't even, he'll put you in ministry almost against your will. So, he will put you to work. He will give you something to do. And I think that makes us strong. Because that kind of leadership, and I know it's so weird because it's my dad and everything else, and everybody wants to brag, but I don't know many pastors who are like that, who are just that willing to put people into positions to get things done. And why that makes us stronger is because you could be next. If you give an idea of something you'd like to see happen, chances are you're going to be put in charge of doing it, right? Ask Ashley. But here's the thing about unity, is that unity is a fragile thing. And unity can easily disappear without any big cataclysmic event. Just do a series of small things. A series of small things can cause unity to dissipate. There's a nice, big word for you, to dissipate, to go away, to erode, to falter, to fade, to disappear. And for us, I think that's one of our strongest traits, is how much we care about each other and how much we're on each other's team. And I've felt it when there's been times when I was going through a struggle or going through something, the encouragement and the camaraderie and the love and the covenant friendship that I would feel here was a balm for whatever I was dealing with. It was instrumental in helping maintain a positive attitude or a right frame of mind for what was happening. And that's what I love about us. And that's what I think as we move on to a new year, that is a strength that will carry us through any challenges that may arise. And there are things people in this body are facing, some publicly, some privately. There are things that people are going through that they don't always wear on their sleeve, right? Things that people come into church and they'll smile and say everything's fine. They'll shake hands, give hugs, and walk out the door back into whatever powers of hell are coming against them. And it's so important for us to be attuned to a covenant of friendship that we can be led by the Spirit to recognize that I don't know the details, but something is there. I don't need to know the playbook. I don't need the script of what's happening, but to be attuned to a covenant of friendship, to know that that person's hurting. That person's going through something. And not that we're not to be busybodies in the affairs of others, because Peter likens that to being a murderer or a thief anyway. But to be open to the leading of the Holy Spirit, to know that my brother or my sister needs me. And that concept of somebody needing you can almost sound arrogant, right? So Karen Gibbs needs me. She needs me. And for me, that could, y'all know me, that could be very easy for my head to get big, right? But that's not what it is. That's an understanding of who you are and who you carry with you everywhere you go, right? To say that somebody needs you is not puffing yourself up in pride. It's understanding that you have something unique in you that somebody else needs. Because we are all members of the same body joined together. Not everybody can be the thumb, you know? Not everybody can be the heart. Not everybody can be the eyes. But without any of those things, the rest of the body suffers. Who wanted to be a pancreas? Somebody is. Somebody out there in the church is the pancreas. He's thinking about body parts. We all know somebody out there that's a butt. We've all met them, right? They are the butt of the body of Christ. I don't know if there's any butts in here, but I've met a few butts in my life, okay? I'm sure you have too. The Red Cross is famous for what? For helping, right? The Red Cross, even in wartime, tends to the injured. It tends to the wounded. And that's their mission. And I'm sorry, I'm a little off. We have that situation of somebody wounded and injured with us. And as a body, you know, we need to be attentive and keep those in prayer who are hurting right now, this morning. And that wasn't in my notes necessarily, but my message is about the covenant of friendship this morning. And the power that brings to not just change your life. A covenant of friendship changed history. Let's look at a couple verses first. Let me just get into this because I'm sidetracked, and I admit it. And go to Proverbs 18:24. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Now, I've read that verse, like many of you have heard that verse, probably hundreds of times, right? And I know that that's a window into what Jesus is going to be. But Proverbs was written well before Jesus was on the scene. So yes, that does apply to Jesus, but that's not what Solomon was talking about when he wrote it. Solomon was saying, a man who would have friends must himself be friendly, and there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. There are people in your life that have a closer relationship with you than even your blood relatives. Right? So yes, that does speak to the coming of Jesus. But Solomon was talking about something else when he wrote this. He was talking about that friend who is so knitted to you, so joined to you, that it's closer even than your family. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. He talked about being closer than a brother, right? Any other passage we read? Then he says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. We don't need friends to make the good times better. We need friends for when the things are at their worst. Right? When things are going good, it's good. Everything's fine. And your friends are there to appreciate that with you. But when we really know, when the stuff hits the fan, that's when you know who your real brothers and sisters are. Because they're there when you're at your worst. And they're there not to take joy in your fall or to take pleasure from your pain or to revel in your despair. They're there to be like, I am here. I'll get in there with you, and I'll be there with you the whole time. Maybe they have a plan to help you get out. I also heard a joke like, a friend will come out and will bail you out of jail, right? If you got a friend, they'll come bail you out of jail. A real friend is sitting in jail next to you saying, she didn't look like a cop. That's a bad example. But, you see, a friend, a brother, is born for adversity. For when times are tough, that's when you need them. That's when you're needed. If you've ever had somebody you really care about goes through something, watching them go through can be painful. Because it's like watching a part of you suffer. But that's why God calls us to be joined together, to be there, because there are times when you're going to be weak, when you're going to doubt, when you're going to despair, when you're going to have heartache, pain, tragedy, when things aren't going to go the way you planned, when things that the plans that you've made fall apart, when the plans that you made weren't of God and you mess up, when you miss it, when you sin, when you fall apart. We need each other to be there to realize that all hope is not lost. Right? That there's a pathway back. That you still have value. That there's still something worthwhile in you, because that's what the enemy does. If he can get you alone and in your despair, when you mess up, when you miss it, when you fall apart, when something breaks inside you, he tells you that's permanent. That's forever. This is who you are now. He's a liar. And you need somebody who knows you. Not just knows you. I know a lot. I got like 1,000 friends on Facebook. I could sit next to most of them and not know who they were. Right? Most of the people on my friends list on Facebook, I have no idea who they are. I'm one of those people, if I get a friend request, I'm like, okay. I'll accept. There was one time, my 1,000 friends, the stat's a little padded, because it was one time several years ago, maybe like 8 years or so, my dad was like, he says, I think I got more friends than you. So I started going fishing for friends. I I go on like fan pages of things I like the Striper fan page or stuff like that. Like, I'll start friend requesting everybody on that fan list. Like, the person's like, who are you? I'm like, I understand that seems weird, but I'm trying to have more friends than my dad. And so, so part of that is because of that. But I'm not, I just, if they want to be my friend, fine, but I don't know who they are. Those are the people they're just acquaintances. But somebody who knows you, who knows everything about you, who knows what your weaknesses are, who knows that when this happened, Rob is going to get upset. Anybody who's ever driven with me knows. If somebody drives 55 in a 55, I lose my mind. Because if they're not driving at least 60, I'm not happy. Anybody who's ever been with me knows that if I go through McDonald's and I get to the window and they say, please pull ahead, we'll bring your order out to you, I've automatically ruined my day. I don't know why that annoys me so much, because it happens to me like 80% of the time. I go there, I just expect it. I'm just like, one of these days, I just want to be like, no. No, I'm going to wait right here. I'm not moving. Because it always takes longer. Anyway, that's not what I was here to talk about. I need to work on that myself. That has nothing to do with anything I'm talking about here. A brother born for adversity knows that you hit bottom or that you're going through it. And that's the thing. That's why it's... All right, look, I don't have a lot of, really close friends. Okay? People that know everything about me. When I was a kid growing up, we moved around a lot. I went to private school, so I didn't even go to the same school as the neighborhood of the kids that of the kids in the neighborhood where I lived. So I didn't go to school with them. And like I said, I think when I was teaching in Kentucky, I did the stats on it. I said I lived in by the time I graduated high school, I lived in 8 different cities. I attended 9 different schools, and I lived in 13 different houses by the time I graduated high school. So I didn't have childhood friends. I kind of learned that I just got used to not having those kind of friends. So I've rarely had really, really close friends. And so when I do have someone I consider to be a close friend, it's a great value to me, because it's not something I've had a lot of. But that's the mentality that's dangerous for me, is like, I'm fine by myself, right? I don't have the energy to go out and socialize. I got 4 kids, from 20 to 3. And 2 pets that annoy me more than anything that's ever happened on this earth. So it's easy for me to get into that mindset, well, I'm just fine by myself. I've got my family, my wife, my kids, my parents, my church. I'm good. But what's dangerous about that is that you can keep a lot of those people at arm's length. I can come in here and smile. We're here for 2 hours on a Sunday, right? If you play pickleball, you're here more often. I'm not one of those, I haven't fallen into that addiction yet. I have an addictive personality, so I know if I did, I'd probably have Nike pickleball gear on and, be watching it on ESPN 6, whatever channel that it's on. But I could keep all of you at arm's length, because I don't spend a lot of time physically in your presence. Now, digitally, we're all connected a little bit more than maybe we were in the past, but I can come in here and smile, give hugs, shake hands, say pleasantries, and never let you know that something's wrong, right? And maybe, and I'm sure that you all can do it too. Chances are you have. I'm gonna be honest, there are times I've walked in here in a horrible mood and just smiled and didn't let anybody know. Something was going on. Something was happening that had upset me, and I'm just going to come in here. I've preached in a bad mood before. As anybody who's ever preached will tell you, there are times when you're on the way to church and you're just like, I got to get up there and preach. That's where the anointing comes in, and every time before I preach, I pray for the anointing to come on me, because this is not about me. As much as I joke around, this is not about me, okay? I'm not here because I like doing this. I love doing this. But that's not why I do this. I do this because I've been called to. And that's what I've been anointed to do. But I can walk in here and I can keep everybody at arm's length and nobody would know what's going on with me. I've done it before. But see, a brother, someone, that's why it's important for us to have those connections, because they see through that. Married couples, she's back there, so I'm whispering. I know when Crystal's mad, even if she doesn't say it. Even if she doesn't hit me, I still know she's mad. Even though she doesn't like take the sticks and start banging me over the head and grab the knives and start trying to stab me, I know she's mad. Subtle things. I'm trying to, I was hoping she's not read it, but she might have the volume turned down back there. Subtle things, you know, that I know because I know her. My God, she's mad. And then, of course, I get mad. Like, well, I didn't do anything to make her mad. Why is she mad? And then, there she's looking at me now. All I said was that you're beautiful. That's the only thing that was said. That's all I said. That was the whole topic. I've been preaching for 30 minutes about how beautiful you are. Now I'm lying? Okay. Well, I'm forgiven. I apologize for that. It was a safety thing. You understand. So, you've met her. But they know, so they can tell when something's off. And you need to have relationships with people who know when something's wrong with you. You need it. We need it. I need it. Wow, I'm really not getting anywhere, am I? All right. Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Crystal was just talking about this. I dropped the ball the last 2 years. I don't know why, but previously I would write letters to everybody in my family for Christmas. And one of them I mentioned to her because, look, her and I are both stubborn people. And you don't mix raw sewage and sewer water and end up with Evian. So when you put two stubborn people together, there's going to be a spark every once in a while, all right? You don't mix gasoline and flames and expect a quiet afternoon. So I had written her a letter that said, as iron sharpens iron, so that's what it does. Sometimes that it can be, well, when you're sharpening a tool, it's grating. It's tearing something away from one part of it, right? And when you're sharpening a knife, you're grinding away part of the metal that's on that knife so it has a sharper edge, so it can do its job better, so it can function at what it's designed to do in a more perfect way. But for the knife, it probably doesn't feel like that. If knives could talk, in Beauty and the Beast, the teacup could talk, the candle could talk, the dresser could talk, all these other things. You guys all remember Beauty and the Beast? I'm not the only one who has kids. But if the knives could talk, it's being tortured. Right? It's having parts of it ripped away. Sometimes, when your iron is being sharpened, it can feel uncomfortable. It can make you upset, make you angry. Who do they think they are? They don't know me. They don't know what I'm going through. They don't know what it's like to go through this. They don't understand this situation. They've never been through this before. That's how it can feel. But it's that iron sharpening iron, and that is what a friend does for each other. That's what, not a friend, that's, I mixed up my plural and singular. That's what friends do for each other. Because you need to be sharp. We need to be sharp. We need to be prepared for what's happening. If you look around in the world, things can look a little scary, right? There's uncertainty. You know, the economy's not doing great. Our government is a cesspool. Our elected leaders are trash. I thought I'd be subtle with my opinions. So, the weather's acting crazy. Right? Things things are not ideal in the natural. But we're not under the curse that this world is in and is under. We've been redeemed from the curse. But we have to stay sharp to remember that. Because you got to remember that and really believe it, to live it, to operate in it, to function in it, to thrive in it. And that's why we need each other. We need each other to be iron to us, to be Iron Man, right? So we called Rob Westbrook, called him Iron Man. There's a good example of this in the Bible, and I'm sure you all know which one it is. We're going to go there anyway. Sometimes it seems kind of, oh, they're going to talk about friendship, they're going to talk about this, because that's the famous one. But yeah, we're going to. Because I want you to see something. Go to 1 Samuel 18. We're going to start at verse 1. We're going to talk about David and Jonathan a little bit here. Now, when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Saul took him that day and would not let him go home to his father's house anymore. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan took off the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor, even to his sword and his bow and his belt. David and Jonathan, when they became friends, it was not a casual, I'll click yes, accept that friend on Facebook, right? It was a real friendship. There was a bond there. They made a covenant, which means that they regarded each other as being more important than themselves, right? Jonathan took off, now look, we don't understand the significance in modern, but he took off his robe. That robe was his as the prince of Israel. That robe had significance. Jonathan knew David was going to be the next king, and that was Jonathan's inheritance. That's how much he cared about David. That's how much he valued that friendship that he formed with David. If you go to 1 Samuel 20, we're going to flip through these quick. 1 Samuel 20 and pick up in verse 16. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, let the Lord require it at the hand of David's enemies. Now Jonathan again caused David to vow because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Jonathan made a covenant, and with not just David, with his house. And David made a covenant with Jonathan's house. And we'll see this later on in David's reign, where he brings in Jonathan's son, who, I'm sure maybe you know this, maybe you don't. Sometimes I feel like things are interesting to me, and they're not interesting to other people. But in a monarchy that functions on a bloodline monarchy, like if you are outside of the bloodline and assume the throne, your first order of business is to kill every remaining member of that bloodline because they have a stake to the throne. Okay? That's how it worked. Did you guys watch, like you watch the old, Sandals and Sword movies where King Arthur and stuff like that, these old monarchical system. Is that what you would have to do? Because they could challenge for the throne. And it would be an enemy that would be constantly a threat. And for David to not only not kill off Saul's bloodline, because Jonathan was the rightful heir to the kingdom of Israel on paper. Not according to God, God ordained it, but on paper it should have been Jonathan's. And then by progression it would have been Jonathan's children, his sons. So David not only ignored that, he took Jonathan's son into his home where he lived the rest of his days in the palace with David. That's how close that covenant bond was. 1 Samuel, jump down to verse 42 of chapter 20. Then Jonathan said to David, go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of God, saying, may the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. So he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. Again, just emphasizing that they made a covenant of friendship that was strong, that they wanted it to last through every generation. They wanted their kids to be under this covenant. They wanted their kids' kids to be under this covenant of friendship. They wanted it to, that's how strong it was. We know the story. Jonathan protected David from his own father when Saul was trying to kill him. Jonathan went against blood for his brother. Amen? One more verse about that. 1 Samuel 23, pick it up in verse 16. Then Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David in the woods and strengthened his hand in God and said to him, do not fear, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you. Even my father Saul knows that. So the two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and David stayed in the woods, and Jonathan went to his own house. Again, this is how strong their covenant bond was that it didn't even matter that Saul, the authority of the kingdom, and Jonathan's father. That's a double whammy. I know what double whammies are like. When I was in 7th grade, we lived in Mapleton, Illinois, the metropolis of Mapleton, Illinois, right? I think it's like 200 people live in Mapleton, Illinois. My dad was the pastor of the church that we went to, and the principal of the school that I went to, because we had a Christian school at the church. So I actually can say that for 2 years of my life, I went literally to a one-room schoolhouse. So, top that. So, Grandma, but that was because there was only one, but anyway, there was only one school in the state of Illinois at that point, right, Grandma? Oh, okay, by the turkey farm. Where was I going with that? Oh, anyway, yeah, so double whammy. I mean, he was my father. He was the principal at my school and the pastor at my church. In a town that if you so much as breathed wrong down the street, the neighbors would call your parents and be like, I'm not so sure about him. He was doing this. Imagine what that life was like when you're 12, 13 years old. I spent an entire summer grounded. Not for one offense, but for many that just kept coming. I'm just about ready to be done, and there'd be another one. Just about ready to be done, there'd be another one. I had no escape. If I went to church, that was my dad telling me what to do. If I went to school, that was my dad telling me what to do. If I went home, that was my dad telling me what to do, punishing me for all the things I did at church and school. So, I understand. I understand Jonathan a little bit. Because his dad, he not only defied the king, he defied his father by protecting David. So every authority he knew, he went in opposition against, in defense of his friend, of his brother, of the covenant that they had. And in doing so, Jonathan was instrumental in preserving the bloodline that would bring Christ to earth. By honoring David, because if David didn't get the throne, David was dead. Okay? Because he was an enemy of the king. If Saul catches David, he kills him. And what does that do? That cuts the lineage of David off, and that cuts the lineage that Jesus came through off. So you may think that being somebody's friend is trivial in the grand scheme of things. Jonathan's friendship with David was anything but trivial. It preserved the bloodline of Christ. That's how important that friendship was, is that it preserved the bloodline of Christ as we know it. So when you think about being a good friend, when you think about what it means to be a friend, about to be a brother, to be in covenant of friendship with someone, like we have the covenant-minded church that we are in, it's not a small thing. It's a big thing. You hear stories all the time of people who were ready to, take the most extreme exit from this earth. Right? People were ready to just end it, who were done. And then somebody would reach out to them. And it changed, it stopped, it gave them a reason not to go through with what they were planning. You hear stories about that all the time. That's not a trivial thing. Maybe it was just a phone call. The person who did it may not even have known what was happening, but that's not a small thing. Okay? That's not a trivial thing. It's not a insignificant or inconsequential thing to be a friend to somebody. In some cases like that, it's a matter of life and death. And it doesn't always have to be that extreme, But, man, how many times has someone just given you a hug when you just needed it? Nobody knew you needed it, but you did. And somebody was there, and they didn't know that you needed it, but they were there. They were just there being a friend. And it makes a difference. It picks you up. It helps you out. It gives you strength, encouragement, hope. It can help you. It can help you get past and get out of your own head sometimes. That's the problem. Is that a lot of times we just get stuck between our ears. And that's a dangerous place to be sometimes. It's stuck between your ears. I know when it's stuck between my ears, then we're in dangerous waters. And so there's a lot of rocks in those reefs up there in that brain. But as we're going into this new year, there are challenges that can come to take away what we have here. And all this before, I just want you to know just how important every single person in this room, and those who couldn't be in this room today, and those who watch because they can't get here for whatever reason, how important they are. This is not a trivial thing. Covenant is not a small thing. Covenant is the strength and the backbone and the foundation of what this church is built on. If you guys remember, those of you like Danny and that's about it. Well, maybe Sheila, but when they first started Grace Ministries out of the Metamora Church, that's what they did, was they taught covenant. That's what they did, and that's what it was built on. That's what this whole ministry was built on, was covenant. There are challenges to covenant friendship, though, and these are the challenges. These are the ways the enemy tries to attack it. We'll try to attack what we have. We need to fight for what we have to preserve it. Because this is special. This is important. This is meaningful. This is beneficial to us. And this will be instrumental in God's move in this area. What we've been able to build here. I'm not saying we should be prideful of it, but we should be acknowledge just how special it is. What we have is special, and if we treat it as a casual thing, as a common thing, we're not going to want to fight to preserve it. It's going to take being able to be, vigilant over what we've got. Because not every church has this. There are churches you can go to where nobody knows who you are. They don't even see you come in the door. They can be big. I'm not ripping on big churches. I want us to be a big church. But you can go to a big church sometimes and you can walk in, walk out, and nobody ever knows you're there. Right? Now, you might get a good sermon, probably some great worship with a band that size. But were you changed? And do you have that piece of iron available to you? One of the challenges to covenant friendship is offense. This is obvious. This is a challenge with any relationship, is offense. Proverbs 19:11 says, the discretion of a man makes him slow to anger, and his glory is to overlook a transgression. So, the glory of him is to overlook a transgression. That means two things. One, there was something wrong that was done to the person, right? A transgression means something actually did happen. It wasn't a perceived slight. It wasn't something that was just in his head. This was Pastor Rob walked in and said something mean to Sue. It actually happened, right? That thing happened, okay? She didn't imagine me saying something mean to her. This is not a recounting of something that happened. I'm just using an example. I'm sure I have. I have a big mouth. I say a lot of words. I have a weird sense of humor. This is recipe for disaster sometimes. But to use this example, I did say something to offend her. So there was a transgression, right? The glory of Sue is to overlook a transgression, according to what the Bible just says here, right? It is our glory to overlook a transgression. Not just, turn the other cheek is the teaching that Jesus gives us, but this is reinforces it by saying not only is it, something you, it's your glory to overlook a transgression. Why would it be your glory to overlook a transgression? Because the discretion of a man makes him slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook a transgression. Part of that is that it is the God on you to overlook a transgression, to be forgiving, right? What are we told us is if you cannot forgive, then your Father can't forgive you. It's the glory of God on our lives that allows us to overlook a transgression, because understanding that, yes, Pastor Rob said something incredibly stupid and insensitive and rude and unfunny and dumb and, I don't know, I'm running out of words. He did all of that. But the covenant we have is bigger than that transgression. Right? The covenant is bigger than the thing that threatens it. That's easy to say, isn't it? That's easy to amen until it happens to you. Until Ashley comes in and calls me ugly. And then I'm like, well, that wasn't very nice. Who would call me ugly? Ashley needs her eyes checked. So it's easy when we're just sitting here talking about it, but when it actually happens, sometimes it may be harder. That's when you tap into the glory, right? Offense is the thing that will attack covenant friendship. Psalms 119, 165 says, "Great peace have those who love your law, and nothing causes them to stumble." Great peace have those who love your law, and nothing causes them to stumble. Not if somebody's mean to them at church, or doesn't shake their hand, or takes their parking spot, or sits in their seat. Nothing causes those people to stumble, because they refuse to take offense. Proverbs 17:9. He who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates friends. He who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates friends. So when Ashley does call me ugly, and then I go to Rob Folk, and I say, Ashley said I was ugly. And he's like, she said it to me too. There must be something wrong with Ashley. Maybe she's got a problem with people named Robert. Maybe that's what it is. And then we call it Rob Westbrook. Has Ashley ever called you ugly? She does it all the time. Sometimes she just texts to me, just to be just out of the blue. And then I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, have you ever heard Ashley say you're ugly? Well, she doesn't say I'm ugly. She says I'm not pretty. And so that means the same thing. So we're like, see how we're separating there? See how it starts? Just because Ashley thinks I'm ugly, then we start pushing that off onto everybody else. But that's what it does. It separates friends. When you're spreading things around, if somebody hurts you, you've probably all heard the adage of saying, especially in a relationship, maybe I've heard it yet, I don't know. But they say never tell your family when your significant other has wronged you, because you may be able to forgive them, but they won't. You may have heard that before. That's because, when you spread something, somebody hurts you. Ooh. If somebody hurts you, that doesn't necessarily give you the right to spread it around to everybody else. What are you accomplishing by that? What would you accomplish? I'm not saying anybody does this. I'm saying, what would you accomplish by that? What's the goal in that action? What's the end result? It's sowing strife. So when Ashley does call me ugly, I have to just take that by myself and forgive her. I don't need to spread it around to everybody else, right? Because that's sowing strife, and that separates friends. That attacks that covenant of friendship. Another thing that will attack the covenant of friendship is strife. James 3:16. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. That's a little bit loaded, isn't it? Where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. Envy and self-seeking attract everything bad that you can think of. And it makes sense. I wish I had that dude's car. I'm going to steal it. right? David, I wish I had Bathsheba. I'm going to have her husband killed, so it looks like he died in battle, so I can have her. I want, to make myself look better than I am, so I'm going to put other people down. You see how it happens? Is that envy and self-seeking usher in every evil thing. That's what strife is. If you think strife can't affect you, then you're not paying attention. Look what it does. It brings in every bad thing. Philippians 2:3, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, that each esteem others better than himself. There's the antidote. The problem where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are, the antidote is let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, that each esteem others better than himself. Simply put others before yourself. When you do that, you're keeping that self-seeking and envy out of the equation. You've blocked one avenue for strife to come in. Because if I'm more concerned about Mary's feelings than mine, I'm going to operate in a way that does not hurt Mary, right? And it's easier to do that with Mary because Mary's never called me ugly. So, that's going to become a rumor now. Is what it is. That's what's about to happen. That's going to be a rumor. It's going to be something that people think. She's never called me ugly that I know of. So, let everything be done without selfish ambition or conceit. Or I'm sorry, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit. But in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. If we all, I think we have that mindset pretty well in this church. I really do. But we got to guard it, protect it, feed it, nourish it, grow it. Amen? Gossip. This is a good example. We've been gossiping about how Ashley thinks I'm ugly. And in Proverbs 16:28, it says, a perverse man sows strife, and a whisperer separates the best of friends. Do you remember when you were younger and, you found out somebody was talking bad about you? And you thought that, and you remember how that felt? Maybe even now, I don't know, there's probably people talk about it now. I'm at this point now I don't care. So it doesn't have the same emotional impact. But when you're younger, that's traumatizing, right? To find out that somebody you thought liked you was talking bad about you. There's two people in that equation that have done wrong. The person who's talking bad about you and the person who told you about it. But why did they go, you should know? I don't know what I would give the odds if that was just for them to see the look on your face when they told you. But I would say I'd start at 50-50, that was a motivation. A perverse man sows strife, and a whisperer separates the best of friends. The worst thing you can become is a gossiper, right? I mean, like I said, Peter says, do not offend by being a murderer, a thief, or meddle in the affairs of others. Gossip will kill a friendship. Because we're all talking bad about each other behind their backs. You know how it is. You know people like this. You've worked with people like this who will say, when you're with them, like, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? Did you hear about Ashley? She thinks Pastor Rob's ugly. And then you go on around the line, and you're like, they tell you dirt on every single person they know. And then what's your first thing when you walk away? Like, I wonder what they say about me. Right? What do they say about me when I'm not there? You can't have trust and confidence in that kind of person. And if you are that kind of person, nobody's going to trust you. Here, we're in the home stretch, believe it or not. One of my New Year's resolutions is to preach shorter. That's not true, so don't expect. Another thing that can attack covenant friendship is a lack of fellowship. Hebrews 10:24-25 says, let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another so much more as you see the day approaching. We talk about this verse a lot. Do not forsake the gathering together that is the manner of some. It's important to be in the presence of each other, right? Yeah, I wish someday I'm going to know, and that would be one of the things, because I wonder about that, because we do have so many technological methods of connecting. Couldn't think of the word. You know, we're on Facebook right now as we speak, on FaceTime. Like, look at that camera back there. Know that there are people on the other side of the internet watching, right? We have, you know, FaceTime on your phone, where it's like we're living in the future. I remember as a kid, the idea of being able to have a camera phone, you could be like a video phone, but that was still science fiction. That was still science fiction when I was a kid. You know, we have phone, we have text messaging, we have, you know, email, we have all these ways to connect, and yet there is still something about being in the same room with somebody that is different. For one thing, written communication is terrible for conveying exactly everything you're trying to say. Because most of what we say with our face, our eyes, our body language, and everything else. Their nonverbal communication is huge. And because if I type, my new job, I send a lot of emails. And so I'm not familiar with having to send a lot of like real emails. I mean, you know, as a means of communication. So I'm constantly like, do I sound like a jerk right now? Should I word that a little different? You know, I don't want to come off as being like demanding or, you know, so, and I see some of the emails I get, I'm like, there are people sending emojis in work emails, and, which I will not do. I have never in my life sent an emoji, and I never will. But, you know, I'm constantly thinking about, well, is this going to make me sound like I'm being a jerk? Am I sounding demanding? Am I sounding like I'm being judgmental? You know, so I'm constantly like, okay, I got to reread it, you know, and try to make, and see this written communication, you can't tell the tone of voice that someone is speaking. You can't see the expression on their face when they're speaking, so it's a bad way to communicate. So that's one part of it. But even so, like, if you have video, then you can see that. So why wouldn't video take all that away? What is it about being in the presence of somebody that's so different from other ways? And I don't have a perfect answer for you. It's something I want to know. It's something I'd love to study out. I'd love to figure out. But if I'm leaning more towards the fact that, well, for one thing, we have angels that come with us everywhere we go. So maybe we're just in a greater host of heaven. Maybe the angels get together. They haven't seen each other for a little while, so they're talking high-five, talking about how they saved you throughout the week and kept you from getting run over by that semi. And, you know, my angels are sitting in the back telling war stories about back in the day, what they had to do to keep me alive. The other is like, you're lying. That didn't happen. He's like, no, I swear. That's actually what happened. And so they're showing off their war wounds and everything else. And so, but maybe that's part of it, is the fact that we bring a host of angels in with us together. Maybe it's because we're spirits inhabiting this physical body, and maybe our spirit, man and woman, are interacting when we're in close physical proximity, and we don't necessarily know it, right? Because do you ever think about that? You're a spirit living in a body, but so is Hank, has a spirit living in a body, and Hank can talk to his spirit man, can hear from his spirit man. I wonder if Rob's spirit man can talk to Hank's spirit man. And to be like, how do you fix a carburetor? And so, so I don't know. I want to find out. I know the Bible says that it's important because it says, don't forsake coming together. So it's important. There's a reason behind it. It's not just made up. So again, just if you're taking notes, there are 4 things the enemy will use to try to attack covenant friendship. That's offense, strife, gossip, lack of fellowship. Pretty much everything can fall in there somewhere. So, excuse me. That's what we need to focus on, I think, heading into the new year, is reinforcing those covenant bonds of friendship that we have. What we have that's unique to us, I think, that's special to us. We need to hold it special. And we need to make sure that this is something that we keep in our hearts, because if we don't think about it and you don't focus on it, it's easy to let it slip. It's easy to be like, well, Danny didn't open the door for me today when I got to church. He opened the door for everybody else, so what does Danny got against me? Little stupid things like that. What's that? See? It can be something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a big, huge thing like Ashley calling you ugly. You don't have to go through that trauma in order to it doesn't have to be traumatic events. It can be simple things that can cause strife and offense to come in. We have to understand, see, the reason why it's so important, the reason why I think God set us up like this, to make us unique like this, to give us this kind of a home base, is because there's work to get done. And it's going to take all of us to do it. I can't touch people in the way that Kim Folk does. I can't reach people like Sue. I don't have the same circle of influence as people like Doc. Although I've got the hair now, so maybe I fit in a little easier. But so, I have tattoos too, so I'm halfway there. I just need to get motorcycling in, and we'll be back on the same page. But we need each other. We need to be there to lift each other up when one of us is down, when one of us is defeated, when one of us is hurting, when one of us is running out of strength or running on empty or up against something that's just, it's taking all we've got to fight it. We have nothing left for anything else. We need to recognize that and be like, yeah, Grandma seemed a little rude today. But maybe it's because Grandma has spent all her emotional strength on something else. And she just didn't have that little extra that she normally has for you. Recognize that and be like, I'm just going to lift Grandma up in prayer. Maybe Grandma's going through something. You know? You see what I'm saying? If we think, that's thinking about her before you. Well, Grandma was rude to me. Well, who cares about you? What if there's something wrong with Grandma? Because that would definitely be out of Grandma's. We got to know something's wrong. If Grandma's rude to me, because I'm her favorite. No, Christopher's her favorite. I'm number 2. I'm fine with that. I've made my peace. So, but that's right. Some are just more favorite than others. We're all equal. Some are just more equal than others. If we can keep this strong bond of covenant friendship in this church, it's going to prepare us to be able to stand together against the things that the enemy's going to do to stop the move that God is planning for us. And Isaiah 43:18 says, "Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I will even make a road in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." You see, 2023 is over in a matter of hours. 2024 is a new thing, right? It's a new year. Forget about the mistakes you made in 2023. Give them to God. Let it go. The plans you made that you didn't follow through on, it's over. It's done. You missed it. Worst is you failed. Okay? Is that the worst that can happen? Yes, you failed. So what? Get over it. Today's a new day. Tomorrow's a new year. It's done. It's settled. Give it to God and move on. A new thing. God will make rivers in the desert. I love that phrase. I will make rivers in the desert. You know what makes a river? It's a constant flow of water digs a trench in the ground over years, and millions and millions and millions of gallons of water flowing through enough that it can cut through rock eventually. That's what forms a river. And God says, I'll put a river in the desert. It means all that work that it took for that river to develop, God's just going to put it there. I like that. That's like the poetic nature of rivers in the desert as well. I think that's well written. I like words. All right, so Romans 13:8-12 says, "Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet. And if there is any other commandment, all are summed up in this saying, namely, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. And put on Christ and do this, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Therefore, let us cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. We've heard those verses before, but look at it through a lens of covenant friendship. He's saying put others in front of yourself. If you operate in love towards your neighbor, you're not going to offend anybody. You're not going to commit a crime against anybody because you're thinking in love towards them. He's talking about that power of unity, that power of covenant that we have here, being able to, as like an armor that prepares us for what's going to happen and gets us in a mindset to go and do and achieve the things that we're called to do. Amen? One more. I'll get you out of here early. Ecclesiastes 3:9. What profit has the worker from that in which he labors? I have seen the God-given task with which the sons of men are to be occupied. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity in their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to end. Okay? We're not at the end. We're certainly not at the beginning. We're somewhere in the middle. We forget those things that have gone before, right? God has a plan for us. It says, I know that, and then keep reading there, I know that nothing is better for them than to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. We're supposed to enjoy what we've built here, what God has joined here, what God has done in our lives. We're supposed to enjoy that. We're supposed to like it. It's okay to like it. It's okay to want it more. It's okay to pursue it. It's okay to cherish it, to nourish it, to grow it, to build it up, and to protect it. Because it is the fruits of our labor. Listen to God. Being willing to ignore it when it actually calls you ugly. Being willing to ignore it when somebody says something that's mean to you and you have a chance to be offended, or somebody slights you in a certain way, or doesn't do something, or sits in your seat, or takes your parking spot. It's a choice to forget all those things and stay focused on what God's called us to do, and we can bear and enjoy the fruits of that labor. It's the gift of God for us to enjoy these things. God doesn't tell you to do things because he just wants to give you a list of things to do. He tells you to do things because it's the best possible outcome for our lives. He knows it, and he wants us to go that way. So then when we do, we are doubly blessed, because then he's like, here's a good reward for just doing excuse me, for doing what I told you to do. Boy, that ruined that whole delivery with that cough, didn't it? It's the fact that he has our best interest at heart, that he tells us to have your... It is the power of him that he has my best interest in heart by telling me to put your interest in front of mine. Say that again. It's the wisdom of God for him to say to me, because he has my best interest at heart, for him to tell me to put your interests before mine. Why? Because if I'm putting your interests before mine, right? You see, if I'm putting my interests in front of everybody else's, one person can benefit. And that's me. That's it. And that's not even going to happen, probably. Right? But there's only potentially one person who benefits from that. In potential. It's just me. But if I put all of your interests in front of mine, all of you have a potential to benefit in some way. Right? Right? It's math. Simple math. We're not talking about trigonometry, which I don't know. So if I was talking about it, it'd be speaking in tongues, because it has to come from someplace other than my natural brain. So that if all of you are doing the same thing, guess what? How many hours is there right now? Quick count. There's 5, 10, 15, we'll say 20 total. If I'm putting 20 people's interests before my own, it's not that hard, because all I have to do is not think about what I need, just be mindful of other people, right? So I'm putting Mary's needs before my own in interaction with her. I'm putting Doc's needs before my own in interaction with him. But see, if I'm doing that and be like, well, what about my needs? Well, guess what? When we're in covenant, that means I got 20 people looking out for me, as opposed to me looking out for me. And I could be an idiot. Sue, you didn't have to really agree that hard. Jeez. I can be a moron at times, right? So I might need 20 people out there to have an eye on things in my life that is different from my own. Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, if I've got 20 people looking out for me, that's better than one. And if all you're doing is looking out for yourself, it's just you and God, you don't need anybody else, guess what? Most of the time, it's probably just you. It seems like you cut God out of that equation. Because God said, he didn't say it like this. This was an author who said, no man is an island. Right? That's not in the Bible. I can't remember who said it. I think it was William Blake, but I'm not positive. But no man, just you and God, just you and Jesus, is not going to cut it. Because that means you're not listening to what God told you to do. Right? So let's look out for each other. Let's lift each other up, build each other up, have each other's back, be each other's strength, be a comforter, a counselor, an encourager, and someone who just above all else loves. Right? We have to love each other. You have the Herculean task of loving me the same way that God loves me. Good luck. Amen. Hey, Happy New Year. You guys all have a great New Year. We'll see. Here it is. I got to say it. I'll see you next year. See you next